Look around you for a moment. The sights, sounds, even the device in your hands. How do you know they're real? It's a question that might sound like the setup to a sci-fi movie, but it's one that philosophers and scientists have pondered for ages. What if everything we see and feel is not the base reality, but rather a kind of elaborate illusion, a simulation, much like an incredibly advanced video game? Today, we're going to take a calm and thoughtful journey through this idea, known as the simulation hypothesis, and ask, are we living in a video game? Imagine the world as we know it is akin to the Matrix, a sophisticated simulation so convincing that we never realize it. This notion has gained modern fame from science fiction, but it actually has deep roots in human thought. Plato's Allegory of the Cave, dating back over 2,000 years, suggested that we might be like prisoners in a cave, mistaking shadows on a wall for reality because we've never seen the outside world. Centuries later, philosopher René Descartes, in the 17th century, wondered if an evil demon might be deceiving his senses, creating the illusion of an external world. Even outside Western thought, there's the ancient Chinese story of Zhuangzi's butterfly dream, a tale in which a man dreams he's a butterfly, then awakens unsure if he's really a man who dreamt of being a butterfly or a butterfly now dreaming of being a man. Throughout history, humans have questioned whether the world as we experience it is truly real or some kind of trick. So, if you've ever had that weird feeling that life is somehow like a dream or a program, you're tapping into a very old line of thinking. But the simulation hypothesis takes this idea a step further. It proposes that our reality might literally be a high-tech simulation, perhaps run on a computer of unimaginable power by advanced beings. Before dismissing that as science fiction, let's explore what this hypothesis actually says and why some very smart people, from philosophers to scientists and tech billionaires, find it compelling. What is the simulation hypothesis? In simple terms, the simulation hypothesis is the proposal that the reality we live in is not the base reality, but an artificial simulation. In other words, we and our entire universe could be part of an extremely complex computer program created by some higher intelligence. If that sounds far-fetched, think about how rapidly our own technology has advanced. Video games started out with Pong, just two rectangles and a dot on a screen. Today, just a few decades later, we have immersive 3D worlds with millions of players, virtual reality, and ever more lifelike graphics. As Elon Musk likes to point out, 40 years ago, we had Pong. Now, 40 years later, we have photorealistic 3D simulations. If you assume any rate of improvement at all, then the games will become indistinguishable from reality. Our games are getting so good that it's not hard to imagine that given enough time, they could simulate worlds as rich and real as our own experience. The simulation hypothesis says, maybe some other civilization, possibly our future descendants, already reached that point. Perhaps they have computers so powerful they can simulate an entire universe with billions of virtual beings living inside. Beings like us, who don't realize they're in a simulation. In fact, according to this hypothesis, our reality, everything we know, might be one of countless simulations running in some giant cosmic computer. This idea was famously formalized by philosopher Bostrom in 2003. Bostrom's argument, in a paper titled, "Are You Living in a Computer Simulation?" doesn't claim for sure that we are simulated, but it shows that one of three extraordinary things must be true. He argued that at least one of the following propositions is almost certainly correct. 1. Nearly all civilizations at our stage of development go extinct before becoming technologically post-human, i.e., before being capable of running such simulations. 2. If any civilizations do reach that advanced stage, none of them will bother running ancestor simulations, simulations of beings like their evolutionary ancestors. 3. If advanced civilizations do run these simulations, then the number of simulated minds would far, far exceed the number of original biological minds, meaning we are almost certainly living in a computer simulation. In plain language, Bostrom was saying either humanity and alien civilizations, if they exist, never get to that advanced point without wiping themselves out or losing interest. Or if they do get there, then simulated realities will be so common that we are probably inside one right now. Why would simulated realities be so common? Consider the future. If a civilization can generate enormous computing power, it could create not just one simulated universe, but maybe millions of them, each with billions of conscious inhabitants. Those inhabitants, like us, would have no idea they're in a simulation if it's done well. If even a single advanced civilization chooses to run such simulations, the number of simulated beings could vastly outnumber real beings. Think of it this way. If there is one real world and a million simulated worlds, the odds of any given individual, like you or me, being in the one real world are astronomically low. As Bostrom put it, if advanced civilizations have the capability and desire to run many simulations, then the probability that we are living in base reality approaches zero. This line of reasoning leads many to take the simulation hypothesis seriously. It's not saying we know we're simulated. It's saying that if our civilization, or others out there in the universe, continues on a technological path, eventually simulations will be possible and ubiquitous unless something stops it. Either something stops it, like extinction or laws or lack of interest, or we're probably in a simulation already. It's a kind of heads or tails wager on the future of intelligence in the universe. Philosophical roots, Plato to Descartes. Although Bostrom's formulation is modern, the question it raises, what is the nature of reality, is ancient. To better appreciate the simulation hypothesis, it helps to see it as the latest chapter in a long history of skepticism about reality. Let's go back to Plato for a moment. In his Allegory of the Cave, Plato asks us to imagine prisoners who have been chained in a cave their whole lives, facing a blank wall. All they ever see are shadows projected on that wall. Shadows of objects and people passing in front of a fire behind them. For the prisoners, those moving shadows are the entirety of reality, because they've never seen anything else. The echoes of sounds in the cave, they assume, come from those shadows. One day, a prisoner is freed and dragged outside. At first, he's blinded by the sun and confused. The real objects hurt his eyes and seem less real than the familiar shadows. But as his eyes adjust, he sees the richness of the world outside the cave. The colors, the three-dimensional forms, the sky. He realizes that the shadows in the cave were just pale imitations of the true world. When he goes back to tell the others, they think he's crazy. They can't even conceive of that greater reality and resist any attempt to free them. Plato's allegory is a powerful metaphor. It suggests that what we take for reality could be just a shadow of something deeper and truer. In Plato's philosophy, the ultimate truth was the world of forms, abstract ideals, of which our physical world is an imperfect reflection. But, in a more general sense, the cave allegory resonates with the simulation hypothesis. Maybe our perceived world is the cave, and there's a higher-level reality, the world of whoever or whatever is running the simulation, that we're oblivious to. Just as the cave prisoners didn't realize the shadows were cast by real objects, we might not realize that our reality is being cast by computational processes hidden from us. Jumping forward to the 17th century, René Descartes also doubted the reality of his world, albeit for different reasons. Descartes, in his quest for certainty, imagined that perhaps everything he sensed was the work of a cunning deceiver, a powerful evil demon or malicious spirit that could fabricate a complete illusion of the external world. He realized that, in principle, there was no definite way to tell from within the illusion that it wasn't real. He could be a mind fed with false experiences by this demon, and nothing he perceived could be trusted. This thought experiment led Descartes to his famous conclusion, "I think, therefore I am." He figured the only thing he couldn't doubt was the existence of his own mind, because even if he was being deceived, there must be an I that is being fooled. But aside from that, Descartes conceded that virtually any belief about the external world could be false if an all-powerful deceiver were at work. Descartes' evil demon scenario is essentially a pre-modern formulation of the simulation hypothesis. Instead of a computer, he posited a supernatural demon. But the effect is the same: a fake reality generated by a powerful agent. In modern terms, we might say, what if we're like brains hooked up to a perfect virtual reality system? How could we know? This also relates to the classic philosophical scenario of the brain in a vat. Imagine your brain is floating in a tank, connected to electrodes that simulate all your sensations. If the simulation is perfect, you'd live your whole life thinking everything is normal, never realizing your body and the world around you are just electrical signals. The simulation hypothesis just updates the technology. It says maybe we're not brains in vats, but self-aware lines of code in a cosmic computer program. The key point here is that the idea that reality might not be what it seems has been with us for a long time. Plato and Descartes didn't have computers, but they were grappling with the same core question that today leads some to suggest we're in a simulation. It's a perennial philosophical mystery. Can we be sure the world isn't an illusion? And if it were an illusion, would it in fact be any different for us, from the inside?